We have a bonus read from the CBS New York Book Club. After decades as a restaurant critic and editor-in-chief of Gourmet magazine, best-selling author Ruth Reichl knows that food doesn't just satisfy hunger. It also can create connections and feed the soul. And her new book, the Paris novel, is being released next week. Ruth Reichl joins us now. Congratulations, Ruth, on your new book. So thrilled for you.
Thank you.
So this book, it's about a woman who discovers herself while staying in Paris. So tell us what that city means to you.
Well, it was the place I loved most when I was growing up, and I chose to set this book in the 80s because when I was coming up, you could go to Paris on like $1.50 a day, and so my character, Stella, starts with that. I mean, she starts like, being there on a shoestring, and then she is introduced slowly to the splendor of Paris. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I got my first real job in 1984, and suddenly I had an expense account, and I could go to Paris and eat in the great restaurants of Paris for the first time. And so that moment is the same moment for Stella, where she suddenly changes from, one kind of Paris to the other kind of Paris, and it's magical for her.
And I love the way you describe Stella's first experiences with French food. When she drinks Chablis, she thinks of melting snow rushing down a mountainside as she takes another sip. When she, tastes an oyster. I mean, it's just all really fabulous, and just kind of we get immersed in her life, and it's just quite delicious, actually.
Well, I mean, the other genesis of this book is I did have this experience of going into a vintage clothing store and putting on a vintage dress. And it was actually the first dress that Yves Saint Laurent designed when he was at Dior.
Really?
And it transformed me totally. I mean, I looked in the mirror and I couldn't believe it. And I had become this other amazing creature. And then I found out that the dress was $6,000 and didn't buy it. But I've always wondered what would have happened had I bought that dress, and that's what happens to Stella. She actually buys the dress, and it changes her life completely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that one moment, because fashion really plays such a big part of this book, too.
Well, if you have never had one of those dresses on, you can't quite believe that that really happens, that you become some other person, and it allows you to do things you would never imagine doing in your real life.
Ruth, you've written 5 memoirs. You've written a cookbook. This is your second novel. Please tell me, so do you write every day? What's your schedule like?
I have to say that this book was a little different than other books because I am a writer who hates to write. So I will do anything to avoid writing. I mean, I like having written, but actually sitting down and writing is very hard for me. This book, for reasons I can't even explain, was so much fun to write. Like every day I would go and say to my family, I'm going to Paris now. So this book I did write every day, and very happily. It was just, it transported me to Paris. That is not my normal routine. My normal routine is like trying to avoid writing.
Ruth, I am so glad you decided to write this, the Paris novel. It is such a great read, and just a big congratulations to you. It's so nice to talk to you this morning.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And the Paris novel will be released on Tuesday, April 23rd.